Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we're on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Darrell Amy.
If you're a high-performing salesperson, you know your time is your most valuable asset. So why waste it on tasks that someone else could handle even better? That's where our friends at Work Better Now come in.
Work Better Now virtual assistants are specially trained to help sales professionals like you fully leverage your time. Imagine offloading administrative work, calendar management, data entry, and follow-ups so you can focus on what you do best, building relationships and closing deals.
With a dedicated assistant at your side, you'll have the bandwidth to grow your pipeline, strengthen client connections, and crush your sales goals.
It's simple. Free up your time, maximize your impact. Let Work Better Now help you work smarter, not harder. Your sales career deserves this game-changing advantage.
Visit workbetternow.com today to learn more and get started, because your time isn't just money, it's everything. Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Darrell Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
We're starting off the new year in the right foot. I trust today, Darrell, we're going to have a very amazing conversation with our friend Cory.
Cory Scheer is here as we are going to close the trust gap. This is going to be a fantastic conversation. As we kick it off, one of the best things about Selling from the Heart is this global community of sales professionals that are dedicated to being genuine, being authentic, building trust. If you're new to the audience, welcome. This is going to be a great year this year, and we're so glad you're here.
You know, absolutely. I want to give a shout out to somebody who's near and dear to me. Darrell, you know who this person is. This person wrote the quote on the front of Selling in a Post-Trust World. Mark Hunter, you've been a mentor and a shining light in our journey here at Selling from the Heart. We appreciate you. Thanks for being in this community.
Well said, Mark. We appreciate you. And we would love to connect with you. If we're not connected to you yet, just reach out to me or Larry on LinkedIn. Reach out to both of us, and we would love to get to know you. Well, today's guest is going to be super exciting for us. Let's face it, sales is built on trust. Without trust, deals stall, relationships fade, and teams break down. And that's why our guest today is the perfect person to join this conversation. Cory Scheer is the founder and CEO of TrustCentric Consulting, and he's made it his mission to help leaders and sales teams close what he calls the trust gap, the space between intention and execution, between what we say and how we show up. With over 2 decades of experience advising senior teams across industries, Cory helps organizations build their trust proposition. He's also the author of Closing the Trust Gap: Why Organizations Fail to Execute and What to Do About It, a must-read for anyone leading a sales team or trying to strengthen trust with their clients. And he's here with us in the studio today. Cory, welcome to Selling from the Heart. It's awesome to have you here.
Great to see you guys. I was jotting down some notes as you were doing the intro about some things that I want to talk about. So I've got
fantastic
it on paper.
There we go.
Hey,
great to have you here, Cory.
Hey, thank you guys so much. I'm honored. I've been looking forward to this for many, many months, and it's just great to be with you. And so greetings from Kansas City, Missouri, on the Missouri side, not the Kansas side.
Very important distinction. Well, this is going to be a very trust-centered conversation. And as we kick it off, you know the question we ask every guest on Selling from the Heart, and that is, Cory, what does Selling from the Heart mean to you?
Yeah, selling from the heart for me means selling in a way that is completely and authentically and empirically proven as a way that is trustworthy. So if I am selling from a position of trust and I am trustworthy, and there's a formula to be able to do that, which I'd love to get into that with you all today, then I know that I'm selling from the heart, because that's the essence of who I am. And I'm doing it in a way that is not only relational, but it's also in a way that is going to be what I would call a win-win-win. It's going to be a win for them. It's going to be a win for me, and it's going to be a win for the mission of the work that is moving forward. So for me, all that I need to continue to focus on selling from the heart is, am I doing it in a position of trust?
Oh, hey, this is so good. And I know we're going to have a great conversation. So you got to give us the whole backstory on trust and how you came to bring all of this to the forefront. Because something tells me there's a backstory to all of this.
Yeah, there really is. The journey that I formally have with trust really began in my doctoral work about 12 years ago. And I needed a theoretical framework in order to run my doctoral research through. And so I came upon this very compelling theoretical framework that was rooted in the retail industry and the airline industry. And I wanted to convert it and utilize it in the higher ed industry, which I did. I completed my doctoral work. It sat kind of latent for a few years, and then all of a sudden it began to emerge as I was beginning to have more and more conversations with leaders and other teams. And then before I knew it, there were people who were like, hey, I'd be willing to pay you a couple $100 if you'd want to come talk at a workshop or to do a small little keynote. I'm like, people are going to actually pay me to talk about something that I've spent a lot of years thinking through. And that one thing led to another. And now 12 years later, I'm 5 years into a company that I founded, and now coming into my third year of full-time work with TrustCentric. And it has been an incredible experience. It's become just a true mission in my life to be able to help leaders and teams and organizations, as the name implies of the company, to keep trust at the center of everything that they do. So it has been a 12-year journey, and now I'm in the middle of it, and I'm up to my eyeballs with incredible opportunities to encourage leaders and teams in helping them understand not just why trust is important, but even more importantly, how do you actually do this in a way that is structural, measurable, and objective? And so that's ultimately what I offer to the clients that I get to serve and the audiences that I get to speak to.
Wonderful. And we're looking forward to diving into all of that here today. As we get started into that, though, every sales professional, every company has a value proposition, but you say we should also have a trust proposition. Walk us through that, if you would, Cory.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for calling that out. That's in my book, which is called Closing the Trust Gap. And interesting story about that. I was actually going to title my book The Trust Proposition. And I was like, this is what I want to talk about. And I'll never forget it. I was with my wife. We were driving west on I-70, and she looked over at me and she said, you know what? I don't think you should call it The Trust Proposition. I was like, what? Like, that's the title. Like, I want to name the title of my book that. And she said, yeah, but nobody knows what the trust proposition is yet. It's like, oof, good point. So she is the discerner in the family. She's very stable, very wise. And she said to me, she said, I really think that you should name the book Closing the Trust Gap. And that name stuck. I sent it over to my developmental editor, and my developmental editor was like, where in the world did you get that awesome name? And I was like, my wife, Jamie, she was sitting next to me. So I give her all of the credit, but she was really right in that at the time, which was a couple of years ago, the whole concept of the trust proposition was really not verbalized in a way that I've tried to articulate it. And now I believe in it so strongly that I spent the money and I did the paperwork and I did the time necessary in order to trademark this particular concept. And so the delineation between a value proposition and trust proposition is actually quite simple. As you guys know, a value proposition is really based on four things. So the consumer is asking the question in their mind, oftentimes subconsciously, these four questions. Number one, is it usable? Number two, is it aesthetic? Do I want to be connected to the beauty of it or the essence of it? Number three, is it rare or can I find it elsewhere? And then number four, is it emotional? So those four questions are the four questions that really comprise in our minds the value proposition. And ultimately what those four questions allow us to do is ultimately we answer the question, is it worth it? Is the product, the service, the experience, the engagement, the contract, the time, is it worth it? So the value proposition is all about taking action on the worth of something. But the trust proposition is different. The trust proposition is not better than a value proposition. The trust proposition just happens before a value proposition. And so this is where, if you think about it in terms of like a river, if loyalty was like the downstream bayou, that's the end goal, the lagging indicator. Value is like the main channel, but trust is something that is way upstream at the headwaters. And so we have to look at both, advocacy and engagement and satisfaction. Those are measures of loyalty. Value, that's obviously, value proposition is the matter of worth and how much are we assigning to the worth of something. But trust is something that we've got to measure way upstream because it drives whether or not we truly find something valuable and then therefore act on it with loyalty. So the trust proposition, it's fueled by your mission, your vision, your values. It's got to have repeatable systems. It is the core of who you are. It's how people experience you. And so whereas the value proposition is taking action on the worth of something, the trust proposition is taking action on the truth of something. And that word is an incredibly powerful word because truth, there is objective truth, of course, but then there is more nuanced truth where people have different opinions. And I heard a great quote from Richard Rohr the other day that said, if it's not objective truth, you will know that people are pursuing the truth when they are doing all that they can in order to reconcile obvious discrepancies. Mm-hmm. If you're with people and you're not landing on the objective truth, but you sense that people are doing their very best to reconcile discrepancies, to co-create, in a sense, a new version of the truth, then you know that you are in a place of trust. And when there is a place of trust, what the data shows us over and over and over is the result is high value. And when there's high value, you guys know we're going to have loyalty. And when we get loyalty, that is what creates incredible outcomes for our businesses, for our products, our services, for our relationships, for our teams. And so this is why I'm so passionate, because most leaders and teams and organizations, they focus so much of their effort and work around building up the value proposition, but the opportunity is to even go one step further upstream and strengthen the trust proposition.
Oh, this is good stuff, Cory Scheer. So I just got to ask, so many in sales are coached to, they're trained to being able to clearly articulate their value proposition. And we've already established that there's some merit to this. Yep. But with trust, with salespeople just swimming for it, and albeit they're all swimming upstream for it, walk us through how somebody can craft their trust proposition and actually get it out onto the business table as fast as possible.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I think everyone should do this. Everybody needs to articulate the two most critical variables of the definition of trust. So trust, my favorite definition is trust is the firm belief in the truth of something or someone. So when we break down those two variables, the two most critical variables or words are the words truth and belief. So we know what truth is. Again, repeatable systems, willingness to collaborate, self-correcting systems. It's fueled by your mission, your vision, and your values. It's how people experience the essence of who you are. But it's not just enough to have truth. You also have to inspire belief. So this is where the art of persuasion, as my former debate teacher used to say, the art of persuasion is beautiful and just. But if the art of persuasion is not pointed to the truth, then you're not actually establishing the opportunity for trust. So when we think about the word trust, if you branch it out into two critical variables, it's both truth and belief. When there's no truth and no belief, it's toxic. When there's clear truth and no belief, we have skeptics. When we have tons of belief, but we have scattered truth, we have delusion. But when we have clear truth and firm belief, we now have trust. And then the second thing that's most critical, and this is in the book, talks deeply about the structure of trust. So what are the structural components? And there are three. We know from the research that there are three critical variables, or what I call building blocks of trust. The first one is competency. That's technical ability, time management, project management, risk management, fiscal management, communication. So when you think about sales, you've got to be incredibly competent in all of those areas. But the second thing, the most important building block out of the three, so we've got the first one is competency, and the second one is problem solving, problem identification, creative thinking, being able to collaborate, being able to use the right data, having after action review, thinking worst case scenario, crisis response. All of the critical components of problem solving is a very, very important building block of trust. So competency, problem solving, and then the third building block of trust, which is just as important as competency and problem solving, is care for others. And when we measured how is it that somebody can demonstrate authentic care for others, when we did our national research, we did not find Pizza Party Fridays and really cool swag. That did not get to the top of the list. The number one way to demonstrate care for others, and it's not even close, is by listening actively. It's listening with intent. It's appreciative inquiry. It's locking into what they're saying so that you can ultimately respond to that authentically. Then you add in things like sympathy, empathy, compassion for the other person. And now if you can imagine a Venn diagram where your Venn diagram has 3 circles, one being competency, one being problem solving, one being care for others. It's at that nexus that the research shows time and time again that creates the optimal conditions for trust with people, but also with our practices and our policies and our planning. And so when we can bring those 3 things together in our relational exchanges, whether with our significant other, with our kids, with our parents, with our neighbors, with our prospects, with our coworkers, those 3 things, competency, problem solving, care for others, all 3 of them together create the optimal conditions for trust. And when we build trust, again, it increases value and it also results in loyalty. So if we can just embrace those 3 critical building blocks, it is a game changer for organizations and for salespeople.
In light of that framework of those 3 categories, where do you think sales professionals drop the ball on this? Because I can see this at an organization level. Yep. I can also see this at a manager level, and I can see this at an individual level. And I want to think about our individual producers here: competency, problem solving, and care. Where do you think salespeople miss the boat on this?
So I can tell you an industry that I have empirical evidence on with salespeople would be more observational or anecdotal. So let me start with the empirical. When we deploy our organizational trust assessment, we work with a lot of school districts and nonprofit organizations, in addition to other small businesses and corporations and municipalities. But when we work with a lot of nonprofits, and every single nonprofit that we have deployed the organizational trust assessment to, 50 questions, anonymous, it's nested in the competency, problem solving, and care for others structure of trust framework. But every single one of them, the highest building block of trust is care for others, which makes sense. The next highest is competency, but then the distant third is problem solving. So when I'm with nonprofit organizations, I can let them know, you need to be aware that it is most common that the building block of trust that you're going to have to be very, not just intentional about, but deliberate, because there is a difference between being intentional and being deliberate. But when you are deliberate about solving the right problems, it now elevates that building block. And so you have now all 3 working together. I think for salespeople where I would say, and let me just point the finger back to myself as somebody who I sell my services to others. And so let me speak for myself. The most challenging building block that I have in that process is the building block of authentic care for others. And the reason why that's so challenging is because authentic care for others takes time. It takes cultivation. It takes patience. People do not like to be worked over or bait and switch. They want to develop authentic, meaningful relationships. And when you do that with them, and we all know it in that call, when you can see kind of the conversation switch from more transactional to more relational, what's being activated there is the care for others building block. I think competency can be trained. Problem solving, you can get wisdom and you can learn to do that better and better. But care for others, like that is guttural. That comes from like the inside of who you are. And people have a very high sensitivity towards that. And so when they sense that you have a strong level of authentic care for others, they're going to lean in and they're going to want to find value in what you offer. And when you can demonstrate the value with your competency and solving their problem, you will gain their loyalty. So I'll speak for myself. I have to be extremely mindful and patient in the building of the care for others dynamic when I'm talking with prospective clients. And then it's in that process that I can demonstrate competency and identify the problem that they may need help with. But that for me is care for others. But I would love to hear, as you all have heard these 3 building blocks, what are your thoughts?
Oh my gosh. So by the way, Cory Scheer, I smell what you're cooking here. I really smell it. I smell it really well. So I'm going to play on this authentically care for moment. So I'm spinning this back into the sales world, like exclusively. People can smell, salespeople and sales managers, they can smell what you're cooking.
Oh, yes.
And when it comes to authentically caring, and selling from the heart language means you got to give a rip.
Yes.
And you can't fake this stuff. And people will sense it. They will smell it. They feel it. And when you carry yourself in a very transactional manner with transactional speak, they're going to sense all of this stuff.
And they will devalue. They devalue what you have to offer them.
And they'll call you out on the carpet, whether they call you out right away or they call you out later on in the deal stalls, is because they smell all of this stuff.
That's exactly right. And to that point, I think it's how do you infuse care for others, selling of the heart into every single micro step of the process, not just the phone call, not just the handwritten note. It is a comprehensive approach. I want to share with you also one other quick thing. When we did our national research, we also cut the data by decade of age, because I wanted to know, is there any difference with the decades? Yeah, there's a ton of difference. And I want to let you all know that the decade that has the highest level of sensitivity is strong workplace culture, organizational trust, not being in a transactional kind of sales dynamic. The number one decade with the highest level of sensitivity are ages 18 to 29. And not only do they have the highest level of sensitivity, which a close second is 30 to 39, but not only do they have the highest level of sensitivity, this is 18 to 29, they also are the fastest to remove themselves from that situation. So when they sense no trust or no effort to strengthen trust, they're gone. They will go to the next, and they will go until they find that workplace culture, that salesperson that they want to work with. They will go and go and go until they find that person that they can trust. It is different for 50 to 59-year-olds, different for 40 to 49-year-olds, but 18 to 29-year-olds, think about all, which by the way, by 2030, 18 to 29-year-olds right now will represent 30% of the job market. It's a huge group that is rising up. And I'm so encouraged because that is the group. They are the ones that are going to help change and shape workplace culture for the better because of their heightened sensitivity and their willingness to say, I'm out. I'm not going to put up with this if you guys aren't working on it.
So good. You want to go back to those three legs of the stool that we're talking about. And I think care is a big deal, but I think the other two are massive spotlight things we got to really pay attention to as sales professionals, especially on credibility. And I got to, we challenge folks in this podcast all the time. I hope you know your products. I hope you know your company, but do you understand your client's world? Do you understand, if you're in B2B, do you understand business? Do you understand, are you credible inside this? And are you able to come to the table and actually solve problems? I love the collaboration word. We're big on that at Selling from the Heart. And I see, those three things working together to form a complete picture of a trustworthy sales professional.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, I'm just thinking gosh, what would it look like before every call? Asking yourself the two questions. Okay, if trust is the firm belief in the truth of something, what is the truth that I need to clarify on this call? What is that truth? And then how do I do that in a way that is competent, solving a problem and demonstrating care? And then the second part of that is not only how am I clarifying truth, but how am I inspiring belief? Those two things. If I can clarify truth and inspire belief, Larry, the moment I met you, you clarified truth and you inspired belief. You and I talked like a year and a half ago. And I'm like, I would love to be on your podcast. I've held on for a year and a half to be able to.
We wanted to make sure you were committed, Cory.
I mean, it was it truly, just as a word of encouragement. And Darrell, you and I just recently met. Very, very same dynamic. It's like clarify truth, inspire belief. And when you do that, it becomes ultimately the most amazing advantage that you have because people are drawn to that. And so then imagine the second part of the question after the call. Gosh, what could I have done better in order to clarify the truth and inspire belief? Okay, so if I identify what that is, now I need to approach it with the 3 building blocks of trust. How do I need to strengthen my competency? Is there a better way to solve the problem? Did I demonstrate authentic care for others? And in that self-evaluation, that's when we can get better. And when we get better and we're committed to it, now what we're actually demonstrating is a strong level of self-trust. And then once we strengthen that trust with ourselves, our own integrity, it will radiate out. It does it with the great leaders that we've worked with in the past. They radiate trust out to the very extension of their environment, all the way up to the very transactional things that occur. That's the power of trust. And it's a huge, not only need, but it's also, there's low-hanging fruit around trust. It's everywhere. It's just everywhere. So it's not that it's hard. I say with my clients and in my keynotes, I say, look, this is not rocket science, but when you embrace it, it is revolutionary.
Hey, this is so good in the very short time that we have remaining. And thank you for hanging out with us. This is a wonderful conversation. Absolutely wonderful. Where's the disconnect in all of this? Because we know how important this all is. Where's the disconnect?
The disconnect it's found in 2 realms. So it's found in the realm of people, because, we're interacting with people all the time, and we all have our own things that are going on at all the time. And so part of that is the continued opportunity to yield for the betterment of others, which is just really hard to do, kind of a dog eat dog world that's kind of anti that. And so we have to be very, very committed to doing that. That's got to be a part of who we are, and it cannot come across as transactional. The other thing is it shows up in our policies, in our practices, in our plan. So if we don't have a plan, we're not going to be able to carry out anything that's trustworthy. If our policies and our practices and our approach is shoddy or not sophisticated, people are going to pick up on that. And so it's kind of those 2 realms where we see them either bumping up against each other, or when there's a high level of trust and a strong dynamic, whether it's sales or workplace culture, those 2 things are working together, because both the realm of people and policies and practices have high levels of competency in problem solving and care for others. I think the other thing is, I'll speak for myself, I'm easily distracted. And sometimes the very best thing that we need to do is the right thing over and over and over and over and over and over. And one of my favorite mantras is, growth is an outcome. It is not a strategy. You cannot say that you have a strategy to grow. That is not a strategy. Strategy is the things that you need to do in order for growth to occur. Growth is an outcome. It is not a strategy. So what am I doing in order to create all of the necessary conditions, even if it's the same thing over and over and over and over and over, as long as it's competent, solving problems and demonstrating care? I know that if I continue to do that over and over and over, it will ultimately lead to growth. The question is, do I have the patience to watch that growth go from slow growth and then all of a sudden gain momentum? But for me, I think one of the biggest challenges in the disconnect is, number one, we've got people who are constantly interacting with each other, which is challenging. But number 2, are we patient enough to let our trustworthy policies and practices take root and then begin to grow? And when they do, people flourish, organizations flourish, and they become unstoppable.
Oh, so good.
Wow. Powerful stuff. So good. As we're wrapping up, and I wish we could just keep talking for 2 more hours. This is so phenomenal. Cory, I know I'm thinking this question. Our listeners are thinking this question. How do I get more Cory Scheer in my life?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you again. What an honor to be with you guys. I'm somewhere I could talk about this all day. So, maybe we need to go to the long form version of this.
Watch out, Rogan. Here we come.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of ways. Number one, be honored if people picked up a copy of my book, which is called Closing the Trust Gap. It's on Amazon, easy to find. And then number 2 is, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. That's definitely the best way to get a hold of me. Shoot me a meeting invite on LinkedIn. I'm very responsive to that. And then third, if you want more information about the work that we do, you can find me at TrustCentricConsulting.com or just Google TrustCentric Consulting. But again, thank you guys so much. What an honor to be with you all. And gosh, I feel like I'm kind of, sitting at the feet of people who I really look up to in this space. And, because they're people who are committed to this work. There's so much opportunity. And so to be able to learn from each other is really an honor. So thank you both.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you, Cory. Amazing. Amazing. What a powerful conversation. I'm thinking back to the beginning when, we've got this value proposition. It's kind of midstream. We got the outcomes we all want as sales professionals, which is sales and trust and loyalty and all of that. But the headwaters, what's at the top? What's the spring that's feeding all of this? It is trust. And the conversation we've had today and the frameworks, the research-backed frameworks that Cory brings to the table, incredibly powerful.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Here's what I'd leave everyone to think about. I'm sure you have your value proposition memorized, or at least I hope you all do.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what's going on inside someone's head. Can I trust you? Find out, right? This would be a perfect time. Go back and rewind this and watch this over again. Come up with your trust equation, your trust proposition, and get it out on the business table as fast as possible. That's what we'd encourage y'all to do. And then reach out to Cory and slap high fives.
Yeah, it reminds me of being in London and getting on their subway. They call it the tube, right? All the signs, mind the gap. Well, I think you got to mind the trust gap here, especially shout out to all our friends in UK. Hey, what an incredible conversation. Grab a copy of Cory's book. We're going to be talking about this for some time to come. We've got great guests coming up. So would you do us a favor? Share this podcast with someone that would enjoy it. Maybe it's somebody in your sales bullpen. Maybe it's the owner of your company. Maybe it's one of your clients. Share this podcast because together we're building this movement of authenticity and trust right here in this sales profession we all love.
And we can't do this without all of you. So thank you for being a part of this community. We really appreciate you.
That's right. So till next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, close that trust gap, and most of all,
Sell from the heart.